Hi, and welcome to today's video of the Texas Executive Branch. So, the executive branch carries out the laws and conducts business of the state, right? So, the legislative branch produces the laws, they write bills, right? And they send them over to the executive branch, and it tells the executive branch what it's supposed to do. And it does it through agencies. So it has the Texas Department of Public Safety, which is in charge of law enforcement. It does it through the Texas Department of Transportation, which builds highways and roads. And there's a whole bunch of other agencies that the state has. It has the Texas Education Agency. The Texas Education Agency, TEA, has different professional licenses for architects, doctors, pharmacists, literally almost any professional license you can think of. There's different agencies for housing and healthcare that are really busy right now with all this coronavirus stuff. It handles jails and prisons. There's even commissions for art and movies. There's the state parks all have their own commissions and an agency to run them. There's some dedicated to animal health, and there's a whole bunch of different laws. Basically, all the laws that we have in Texas, there's commissions or agencies dedicated to carrying out the laws. Most of them are led by the governor. So the Texas governor is the one who's in charge of most of these agencies. And we would say that he is like the head of the executive branch, which is why I drew him, right? So he's the most powerful one here. Kind of. So what he does is his main power is to approve laws. So he can approve or veto, which is approves a check mark, vetoes to send back bills, right? So if he approves them, then they become a law. Oh. If he approves them, then they become a law. So he doesn't get to make the laws, he just gets to approve them or deny them. He can call in sessions, right? We talked about that previously, how he can force the legislative branch to meet and discuss certain items. He can call a state of emergency. Which does give him special powers. It gives him more authority to make rules. Say, for instance, right now with coronavirus, he has the authority because he's called a state of emergency. He could put the soldiers, or he can use the Texas Army forces or the Texas military forces to help out however he deems necessary, which is what he did in Dallas. He directed the military to help them with hospital capacity. He's the commander in chief of the military, but he can't just use them whenever he wants. He has to call a state of emergency, which he can always, if we feel like he's taking advantage of us, he can always be impeached by the legislative branch. So if he gets a little too carried away with his powers under the state of emergency, we can get him out through the legislative branch. But you have to convince a lot of people that he's actually doing bad, which more than likely isn't going to happen. He's been doing his job as a governor. Another thing he has to do, like I said, though, is primarily run these agencies. So all of these agencies, or most of these agencies over here, he has to appoint people to run them. So he has to decide who gets to run them, who doesn't get to run them. He's a lot like the president is in the United States. In the United States, the president gets to appoint different people to run the FBI, to run the CIA, to run the Department of Agriculture, Department of Health, all of these different, the Department of Education, or the Secretary of Education, but basically the Department of Education, all of these people, the president gets to choose in the United States who runs those agencies. In Texas, our governor gets to choose a lot of people that run these agencies, but not all of them. In fact, if we focus, there are some very important ones that he cannot appoint. So he cannot appoint the lieutenant governor, who's like his vice president. Let me get a different color. So he cannot appoint his lieutenant governor. His lieutenant governor gets elected. The lieutenant governor is like his VP, right? And so his VP is the one who presides over the Senate. So it's an executive, he's part of the executive branch, but he works with the governor to get the legislators to kind of do what they want him to do, or focus on what they want him to focus on. So he has power over the Senate, even though I misspelled Senate there. Let's fix it. Bam. All right, so he's got power over the Senate. Another person that works for the executive branch is the Attorney General. In the United States, the president would pick the Attorney General. In the state of Texas, he's elected. So the governor does not pick the Attorney General. He is elected by the people. The the Attorney General is basically the chief legal officer. You call him Texas's lawyer, okay? The comptroller is the person who's in charge of tax collection for the state. Also, in the U.S. government, the federal government, the president could pick somebody to be the leader of the IRS, basically. But in Texas, the governor doesn't get to pick him. The people have to vote for that person, okay? When we move on to the land commissioner, that person manages land. All the Texas lands, basically the land that the Texas government owns, he has to manage them. Once again, that person is not appointed, he is voted in. The Agricultural Commission. So the president is in charge of making sure that all the rules are followed for agriculture, for our farms and our ranches. That person is also voted in. He doesn't get picked by the Texas governor. The Railroad Commission, which has a really misleading name because they don't actually manage railroads. What they manage is oil and gas and how it gets moved around and different safety policies that we have to follow for oil and gas. Well, that person is not picked by the Texas governor. That person is picked by the people of Texas. And then lastly, the Texas Education Agency, or TEA, the people that run our schools and our basically our education program in Texas, they don't get picked by the governor. In the United States, in the federal government, the President Donald Trump, could pick whoever he wants. Right now it's Betsy DeVos, that's the Secretary of Education. Well, the governor can't pick who he wants. The people pick. They go through a vote and they vote in Texas Education Agency individuals. So all of these people, they work with the governor, but he does not get to pick them. That's a big difference from the federal government, which is the United States government, and the Texas government, right? So in the federal level, the president can pick these people basically in jobs that are very similar. At the state level, Texas governor, because of the Texas Constitution, which are our rules, he cannot pick these people. They get voted in. But they usually end up working really well together because they're usually members of the same party. All right, so yeah, the last power that the Texas governor has is to grant pardons. So that's a big power that he has. So you can grant pardons basically if one of his agencies, he's got an agency that's dedicated towards pardons. If they recommend somebody for a pardon, they say, hey, look, you should probably get this person and forgive them for the crime that they did, then he can do that. So basically a pardon is forgiving a crime, which could be very, very useful. He's the only person in Texas that can do that, which is pretty awesome. All right, guys, so that's a pretty brief explanation of the executive branch in Texas. I'll give you guys a quick review. So it carries out laws. Those laws were made by the legislative branch, so they get sent over to him, and it conducts business for the state. It does it mainly through agencies. The person atop most agencies is the Texas governor, and he's actually the head of the executive is what we describe him as. But there's some special agencies where we have the people like the leaders, like the lieutenant governor, attorney general, the comptroller, land commissioner, agricultural commissioner, the railroad commissioners. There's a few of them in the Texas Education Agency. The heads of the Texas Education Agency, I believe there's 15 of them. They're all voted in as well. But they all work together to run and to, like I said, carry out the laws and conduct the business of the state. So they work together, these guys. Some of the powers of being a Texas governor is he can approve and veto bills, so he can approve or deny laws. He can declare a state of emergency and use the Texas military guard. So he's basically the commander-in-chief of Texas military. He can appoint people to some agencies, which means he can basically make people the bosses or the head people of each one of those agencies that we're talking about over here. And then he can grant pardons, and a pardon is a forgiveness for a crime. Okay, so go ahead and complete the document that's associated with this lesson. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you on other lessons.